Okay, are we ready? Well, I'm gonna introduce you. Yeah. Hi, everyone, welcome. We're gonna get started. Grab a beverage or a chocolate and come settle in. Hi, everyone on Zoom. Thanks for being with us today. My name is Felicia Scott Flint. I'm the director of the MassArt SoWa Gallery. I'm thrilled to have this beautiful exhibition here in this gallery. It's been traveling around Poland and New York for the last year or two even, and it's finally back here and will be here in the United States for the next 2 years. So we're excited to have this be its first debut, starting that run. So we're going to hear from a select group of artists today from this amazing show of over 60 international artists. And I'm going to pass it over to the curator, who is an alum of MassArt. So we're so proud to have our alumni community back here, along with some of the artists who are faculty and also other alums. And welcome, Ania. Thanks for everyone for being here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ania Gilmore, and I would like to welcome everyone to the Freedom Project KOLEKCJA at the MassArt X SoWa Gallery in Boston. Quite special place for me because this is my school, and we have professors, alumni, and my colleagues who are part of the exhibition. In this show, we are presenting works from the Polish Book Art Museum permanent collection in the Book Art Museum in Łódź, as well as some invited works that are presented in a gallery. I would like to extend my gratitude to all the participating artists and mention a few key individuals who made this exhibition possible. Gilmore, my husband and partner, who's always helpful with everything that is going on. Jadwiga Trzyzna, the director of the Book Art Museum in Łódź and the museum team. Agnieszka Kowalska-Owczarek, the Freedom Project KOLEKCJA coordinator. Of course, Felicia Scott and her husband, and the MassArt SoWa Gallery in Boston team for putting all this show together. I also would like to mention two artists who are no longer with us, who are part of the Freedom Project KOLEKCJA. One of them is Charles Wynn, Boston artist. His work is in the third gallery here. And also a German artist, a sommelier master that I studied for many years. His name is Jan Zaremba from Leipzig. So we lost two of these artists last year, and I would like to honor them, citing a quote by ksiądz Jan Twardowski. Spieszmy się kochać ludzi, odchodzą tak szybko. And I will translate this to English. Let us hurry to love people. They depart so quickly. Today we have 11 artists presenting works and talking about their studio practice. And we will start with the artist from Hungary, Eszter Bornemisza.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Eszter Bornemisza. I'm a mixed media artist living in Hungary, Budapest, living and working there. I am originally trained as a mathematician, and I earned my PhD and worked as a researcher for 20 years before transitioning to textile arts. I started with making art quilts, or actually quilts at the beginning, but then art quilts out of recycled fabrics that I inherited or got, that I overdyed, painted, and made collages out of them. I used from very early on, I used patterns of labyrinths, kind of the symbol or metaphor for getting lost. A few years later, I found that maps are kind of doing the same impact, but in more details. So I started to work with maps, but I couldn't figure out how to use them. And since I don't have any formal education in arts, I have to figure out everything by myself. But since I like to experiment and research, I kind of figured out everything what I do nowadays by myself, and I really enjoy that. The things that I do is really mine, because I found out, maybe some other people found out it before, but I feel it more for mine because I figured out how to do them. So, and a few years later, maybe from the early 2000s, I figured out that I can work with newspaper because I can cut them out. It's easier to paint exact things on it. And I also like it because of the material is a very poor material, so it disintegrates or tears off very easily. And sometimes it is obsolete at the minute when you get it, but still it keeps the history of our recent times. And so I can use them as a layer of meaning in my works. Also, I like very much to use texts that are not so easy to understand because they are written in a foreign language and which are Islamic for us. And for a long time, I tried to find nice writings which look interesting, but I was suspicious that what they mean, and if I put it on my work, what if someone can read it? And so I dropped this idea, but I have been searching for a text that is kind of universal, and it is translated to all languages in the world. So I've been going through many ideas. I didn't want to go into religious directions. So I figured out that I will use the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And on the internet, I found it is translated to all languages on the world. So I started to use them, and I used them as images and made a little photoshopping of mixing them up. So the Japanese with the Georgian, with the Khmer, so that it is kind of a collage of all kinds of languages. And I also like the importance, the meaning of it. And I used one of these collages in this work. So the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights was proclaimed in 1948, and right a few years after the war, after the devastation of all what the Second World War made around Europe. And it sets the fundamental human rights and the dignity of people. And I think that as the memory of the Second World War is fading out, the importance of this document is fading out somehow too. So I wanted to draw the attention on this and put the emphasis on paying the importance of dignity of other human beings while there are wars going on and all kinds of other things. So what I did, I took a piece of newspaper that you can see slightly behind. I overprinted it with one of my collages of different languages of Declaration of Human Rights. And I put it on a piece of fabric and simply stitched a grid over it. So the title is Freedom Behind the Bars. And the bars are the stitched grid or lines above my work. So this is more or less what I wanted to say. And I would like to introduce Kęstutis Vasiliūnas, and I don't know if I pronounce it well, with whom I have been in contact many years ago because I've been part of the book art exhibitions that he organized. So welcome, Kęstutis, to talk about your work. Hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to see the artist Eszter. She was participated in my exhibition, and I'm very happy to see her, at least in the internet, not in real life. So if I would talk about my art, I'm from Vilnius, Lithuania, and I create big size prints, woodcuts, printed on canvas, and on this time I'm creating 5 meters woodcut in colors, printed on canvas, and it's about the war, about the reflection of what is going on in our life, about the war in Ukraine, and not only. But also I create artist books, and maybe the main my activity, I would say that I spent all my active life for creating artist book exhibition, for promoting artist book as a media, for promoting artist book creators, and for making exhibition not only in Lithuania but in many countries. So during my activity on artist book, which I started in 1994 with the big exhibition in Contemporary Art Center in Vilnius. It was the first international art book exhibition in Lithuania, and it was created by me. And now I did 10 artist book triennals in many countries. Total, it was about more than 60 international artist book exhibition in France, in Germany, in many places in Germany, in United States, in Sweden, in Finland, in Italy, Austria, Belgium. And it was I found that it is my mission to promote artist book as medium and to help for artists who create artist book object, to show such artist books for art critics, for museums, for galleries, for viewers. Because I found that mostly in Europe, especially in Europe, they love not artist book object, but traditional artist books. So the triennals which I organized in Vilnius, it was more about unicat, one edition artist book object created from different materials. Sometimes we were showed also and printed artist book from Germany, or from France, or from Belgium. That was normal because I think that this activity is very important for such country like Lithuania, because we are a very small country and we have no tradition on artist book like France or Germany or Switzerland or United States. So I wanted to introduce Lithuanian people, Lithuanian professors and students, what is going on with artist book in different countries, and to show it in Lithuania. And it was, I would say, not very successful in Lithuania. It was very good in America or in Europe or in Korea or somewhere in Japan, but not in Lithuania, because we still have such thinking way that artist book is not part of art or something like it is not very professional, and it's in government, and it's very difficult to change. But I have to say also that now, when we started artist book channels, when we started artist book exhibition in Lithuania and abroad, we teach artist book in my academy, in Vilnius Art Academy. We teach in our University of Lithuania. We teach also in the simple schools artist book, because we found that everyone could create artist book, and child and in university student and professor and ordinary person. It, of course, it's depend on quality, but it's very interesting medium. So I was very happy when Ania invited me to participate in Lodz with the exhibition, in the exhibition with my small little artist book created from tea bags. I could say that it's something like my media, connect tea bags in one book, because I'm interested more not in the context, but more how to express the idea through material, through the color, through the different medium, through the rope, or this small white lines or a little brown line, and more dark tea bags or more light. And sometimes to print something like links on the tea bag, just to show what I would like to say for the people and why I create such art. So that would be my short talk about what I am doing and in what I am interested. And also I have to say that I stopped with artist book channel. I did 10 artist book channel, and I decided to stop because it's too complicated to get some support from Lithuania, and moral support and financial support, and I decided to stop with such activity. But I how to say, I decided to make artist book museum, to establish artist book museum, and because I have some artist book collection during all my life, many artists gave for me it as a present, and I would like to show it in Lithuania, because there are a lot of wonderful artist books, contemporary artist books. And on this time it is only virtual artist book museum with some artist books, but later we will put in this website more and more artist book, because it's 100 of 100. It's a lot, and they are very different, very interesting, and I think it's very important field of art for not only for professors but also for students, for everyone to see how beautiful is the world of book, how beautiful could be book. And this museum would promote artist book when I will be not here, when I will leave all this artist book community. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I would like to introduce another artist, Ania, Plaisance, if I said correct, from USA, France, and Prague. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I have a question for you. What is the smell of abuse? What is the color of a lie? And then what is the shape of manipulation? My name is Anne Plaisance. I'm an artist, a curator, and the founder of Wonder Women, now Women Empowerment Art Project. And you might wonder, why am I focusing on the tactics of manipulation? Let me tell you a story. It may be triggering for some, but my will is to be very honest, authentic, vulnerable, because the more I am this way, the more it gives the power to others to do the same. So my story is that, imagine it's 2020, November, it's full lockdown. It's November 20. It's a beautiful sunny day. And I'm taking my 2 kids and my dog, and I'm fleeing my abusive husband. And I'm hiding for a few weeks because I'm afraid. Because actually a friend of mine told me that he might kill me. You never know, you know. So why am I using perfumes? Actually, this series of perfumes embodies the manipulative tactics used by abusers. They are like a carefully crafted fragrance. They are layered, they are nuanced, they are deliberately designed to create an intoxicating illusion of love, trust, and safety, all while concealing their true intent. So just as a perfume is composed of top, heart, and base notes that unfold over time, manipulation is not recognizable at first, not always, because it's very subtle. It's seductive as a perfume, it's reassuring, smells good, it looks good, it sounds good, but it deepens slowly but surely into confusion, control, and dependency. Abusers blend all these techniques, adapting them to their victims' vulnerabilities. Let me say that again. They adapt these techniques to their victims' vulnerabilities. You might ask, why is this bottle empty? I showed this series a number of times, and people were like, there's nothing in it. Of course, it's empty, because it's as hollow as abusers' empty promises, and as they are themselves empty. You have grand gestures, intoxicating words, future faking, promises that just evaporates as a perfume. And this perfume leaves victims with trauma. That is all that is left after the abuse. The perfumes mirror to the trauma bond, the psychological and biochemical attachment created by this pattern of affection control, reinforcement that bonds chemically the victim to the abuser. Smell is the most primal, emotional charge sense. So actually, it's directly wired to the brain's limbic system. It governs emotions, behavior, and memory. To the opposite, other senses are processed first by the thalamus. So the smell activates the amygdala, the center of emotion, and the hippocampus, the memory. There's a direct neural pathway between the smell and the brain that evokes vivid memories and deep emotional reactions. So the neurological link between smell, memory, and emotion makes scent a really powerful metaphor for manipulation and abuse. the layers, the complexity, the patterns of reinforcement, the cycle trap. The victim usually clings to the good moments that were smelling so good. So right now, actually, there are some interesting emerging research in neuroscience and epigenetics that reveal that actually trauma, on the long run, alters the brain's wiring and can also modify gene expression. That's something I read really recently in the last month, which means that chronic emotional abuse activates the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So when you have stress, you release a stress hormone into the body, cortisol. Cortisol over time provokes changes in the brain, in the amygdala, how you process, for example, fear. The hippocampus, the memory. For example, I have huge issues with memory. I can't remember everything. That's why I have my notes in front of me. And the prefrontal cortex, which is here, which is the center of, rational thinking and processing. And the studies in epigenetics right now show that, trauma works on DNA. It influences how genes relate to stress regulation, immune response, and emotional resilience, which means that it also potentially passes to the next generation. So, I think it's important to talk about freedom for everyone, freedom for women, freedom for children, which is a transition to, my body, my choice, a painting I did, especially for this project when Ania invited me. And I would say something that might seem controversial for you. So forgive my bluntness. But I think especially in these trying times, my body, my choice is something that is primordial. A society cannot be free if 50% of the population doesn't have bodily autonomy and doesn't have their rights to their own body and to their own choices. I did a little experiment just before coming. I'm using a lot of AI, and actually I created an app to empower women recognize manipulation tactics. And I asked ChatGPT, please compare how the rights of women compare to the rights of dogs. And it was really interesting. I mean, the truth is that there are animal cruelty laws in all 50 states. Women nowadays have less rights than dogs. So your daughters, your mothers, your sisters, your aunt, they have less rights than your dogs. I will let you ponder over that. Thank you. And I would like to introduce you to the next speaker. Her name is Anna-Mária Orbán. She's from Romania. Voilà. Have a great day.
Hello, hello. Hello. First of all, I would like to thank to Ania Gilmore for inviting me in this project, because I met her in Korea with another interesting project organized by a Korean artist, Changili, and that was, I think, in 2014. Since then, the world has changed a lot. So we keep in touch, and she was so kind to invite me in this project. Also, I have to apologize that my English is not the best, but I hope I will be able to express myself and to speak to you about my project for this freedom project KOLEKCJA. So, thinking of the complexity of freedom, I started to form a word puzzle by folding this handmade paper in small quadrates. Then I punch this surface with 9 holes, so the 9 holes connected with the other layers, and thinking about the symbolism of the number 9, which is very wide in different cultures, different religions, also let me to form these stitched letters. So if you analyze my work, you can find some words there, which is violence, woman, man, no violence. So you can create all kind of connections, but in my practice, I usually like to use things which are not just visually can impress, but also had other meanings. Because visual art, it's let's say, universal language. So we are fortunate that we can express ourselves just working with the material, working with colors, working with lines. So as an artist, I use this kind of techniques in my artistic practice. Also, I'm teaching, so I think that each of us, when we are coming to this world, we are artists, but the world are spoiling us. So who can keep himself an artist and choose to be an artist? It's difficult, but also it's a pleasant thing to work with the ideas and the materials and different techniques. So I'm a kind of artist which I like to experiment, and regarding the subject or the subject matter, I find my materials and find my different kind of expression to use to express myself. So usually I don't like to talk about my practice because I like to let my work to have its own life, because exactly when we think that God created our existence, so also the artist can be considered a creator, of course, not God. Also, because I'm Catholic, but not more Catholic than Catholics, I use this idea of Pope John Paul II, who mentioned in his encyclics the role of the artist in the society. So related the role of the artist to the society, that can be a question, because I think that the role of artist is to show to the people where they are wrong or where they are good, to show the politicians that when they are wrong or when they are doing good things. So in this way, freedom also can be a kind of weapon. That's why in my this work, the freedom is appear to be related to the concept when it concerns the human rights, right to choose, right to act, right to speak. Out your mind is not always respected. So freedom, in my point of view, can be like a sharp double blade sword, sorry. So I would not like to be boring, so I think I will finish my speech. And once again, I would like to thank Ania Gilmore for inviting me. I was very happy to see her. I'm sorry that I cannot see the other participating artists. And I would like to introduce Kacper Zagdan, which is a Polish young artist, and I find out that he created the typeface of this freedom project. So I congratulate him, and once again, all the best for all of you. Bye.
Unfortunately, Casper has not joined our Zoom yet, so we're going to move on to Sandra Mayo.
Thank you. Hola a todos. Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk about my piece, What Goes Around Comes Around. This piece grew out of a personal encounter with Sarah Rus. Sarah was a Polish Holocaust survivor who made it to Argentina, but first, after the World War II, she was a refugee in Germany for several years. Then she made it to Paraguay, actually, and she crossed the border to Argentina illegally because there was a quota for refugees, of course. She was put in prison after being in 3 concentration camps during the World War II. And she didn't know any word in Spanish. She knew that she had an uncle in Buenos Aires. That's why she wanted to get there. So this petite woman, unbelievable, and she spoke Russian, Yiddish, Polish, and German, but no Spanish. She wrote in Poland a letter to Evita Perón. Don't cry for me, Argentina. And Evita Perón wrote her back in Polish and said, please be patient, I'm gonna take you out of there. And so after 2 months, she did. But we are focusing now on her experience as a refugee. So I'm switching themes, but everything will make sense and get together at the end. So be with me. I'm using genograms for my print, and genograms are family trees that come alive because they not only tell you who is related to whom, mother, father, son, and daughter, but also what type of emotionality exists within the people. Do we have a positive relationship? Is there a cutoff? Someone is abusive? There is emotional abuse. So I'm treating now the whole world, yeah, as a family with the symbols of the genogram. We are all humans, we are all a family, but families have conflicts. So here I'm concentrating in the conflicts of Africa and Europe. So there are many refugees and forced migration from Africa to Europe, and then from Latin America to the US. And if we look at its history, and if we don't see this as isolated cases, but as a consequence of history, we see that there was in history colonization from Europe to Africa and political abuse from the US to Latin America. So if you are running for your life and you are from Mali, where are you gonna go? So you look to France because you were colonized by France. You already know French, and not only that, but you believe that the French culture is superior to your culture. So of course, you are gonna put all your hopes in France. If you are running from a gun from Nicaragua, where are you gonna go when you've been bombarded with TV American programs all your life, and you are surrounded by American companies. And all the dictatorships in Latin America were supported by the US. Where are you gonna go? Even though you don't know the language, even though you know that you won't have health insurance and this is very risky, but you need to sustain yourself with hope. So you go north and you come to the country of exceptionalism. So that's why 90% of the people here believe that, right? So let me talk about the materials that I've used. This print was printed on Tyvek. Tyvek, it's used in construction. It's to protect the houses from the elements. And this is exactly what refugees are looking for, a house. It's not like one day they wake up and they say, oh, I leave everything, I'm gonna go to another country. This is a very difficult situation and a decision, and you do it when you have no choice. So that's why I've used Tyvek. And let me go a bit deeper, because the original piece, it's much bigger. It's 4 feet by 4 feet and was analyzed by the Dr. Jane Snyder, and she's the president of the Boston Graduate School of Psychoanalysis. So, and she says, what comes around, goes around, captures a global dynamic in the journey of refugees seeking a better life and ending up in limbo. Ironically, they often seek refuge in the very countries whose exploitive actions have contributed to the deplorable conditions causing them to live. The structure of the work is a mirror image, which reminds me of how we use the other to reflect or deal with aspects of ourselves. Do we see the other as similar or different? Are we interested in that difference, or are we fearful, hostile, rejecting? The refugee can be a target for projection of our own neediness, helplessness, and hopelessness, a target for dehumanization and aggression. Sometimes refugees arouse fears of homelessness, loss, or destitution. There is a lot of symbolism here. The layers of handmade paper represent the many layers of history behind the interactions between peoples, as well as the layers of the psyche of all of us, from the conscious surface to deep unconscious, our drives and wishes. These layers are stitched together in patterns drawn from genograms, a system of symbols used to diagram the emotional and physical relationship within families, including the patterns of immigration, abuse, and violence. The work itself is printed on Tyvek, a common building material symbolizing the search for a safe home. There is a resonance between practitioners of the psychoanalytic process and the artistic process. Each engages in research using their emotional responses as important data points when trying to understand the human condition at a deeper level. Understanding is represented through words in the case of psychoanalysis and through representation in the case of visual artists. So I don't know if you wanted to go deeper, but it's a very small piece, can say a lot. And so I wanted to mention Ania, and what a coincidence that our dear curator is from Poland, and Sarah Rus, as I started this project, she was born in Łódź, actually. So, and this piece was acquired in Łódź, and so for me, it's really like a full circle. And I thank you so much, Ania, for putting all of this together. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Lasse Antonsen.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and I'd like to thank, as so many of you have, for creating this wonderful project. My background is one of being both an art historian and an artist. Have devoted my life really to work with contemporary artists and to present them as a curator and to write about them and to, of course, pursue my own artwork. In the context of what we're doing here, I thought I would just briefly read something I put together about what I feel is our present situation. So I'm pleased to participate in an exhibition that addresses the important social, political, economical, ecological, and environmental issues that we are confronted with now. Globally, we are clearly in a precarious situation. International trade and political nationalism are in conflict. Exploitation is now felt in all countries, almost without exception. The neoliberal agenda has created an elite possessing tremendous wealth, while leaving the general population without identity, without meaningful interaction with nature, and often without purposeful work. For many, daily existence has become a struggle for survival and an existence unsupported by meaningful rituals, lacking an enlightened religious and cultural identity. I think we are actually in a period of unheard of fragmentation. So for centuries, individuals have sought to discover a larger cosmic context, a meaningful structure that might lie behind our existence, a context that places our physical, mental, and spiritual presence within a larger energy field or spiritual framework. In ancient Greek civilization, it gave rise to concepts such as the music of the spheres, which is what I chose as the subject matter for my work. In China, we also have the concept of qi, which is an ancient exploration and actual physical participation in how energy feels, acts, and situates us in our body and in nature. Much, I believe, could be arrived at by merging ancient Western and Eastern traditions. In creating my work, I decided to take up the challenge to work with a vocabulary and with materials and on a scale that I do not usually work with or within. I felt I needed material that reflected light and chose silver-coated paper, and material that absorbed light using black velvet-coated paper. Leaning more on the ancient Greeks, the subject matter required geometrical shapes, which I placed intuitively. The shapes have some ambiguity in the way they relate and appear somewhat unbalanced, yet I believe can be meaningfully explored. So my artwork, in a sense, is an object of contemplation. And now I would like to hand on this program to Leonie Castelino.
Hi, I am Leonie Castelino, and I'm a fiber artist. My medium is textile, and I call myself a contemporary Bojagi artist because I've been inspired by the ancient Korean art form. And what inspired me was the architectural themes, the composition of patchwork, and the sense of ethereal. And in my work, I like using this type of fabric, which is ethereal, to talk about issues that are hard. And my work celebrates the glory and the strength of the feminine. And I use the power of art to initiate dialogue and provoke thought in my installations, videos, and collaborations. I focus on the issues of freedom that adversely affect women, and by consequence, it also affects the society we live in. So in 2014, I met Ania Gilmore, and this was at an international exhibition in Jeju in South Korea. There was an immediate chemistry, and later we found that we connected on the issues of freedom. So it's my privilege to know her, and I'm so honored to participate in this journey. The title of my work on the right is called No Boundaries. This particular work I started creating at the time when Ania asked me to participate. And the big issue in America was the issue of gender in sports. And it seemed that in the 21st century, girls were still fighting for their biological identity. And it seemed inconceivable that that throughout millennia, women have to fight for who they are. So the fabric is organza, polyorganza. The shapes are not perfect, neither are the seams, and they are jagged. And it really is part of all the issues that young women are facing. The work on the extreme left is called Cocoon of Power. And in 2018, I was invited for a solo exhibition in South Korea in Seoul. And this was at the CITEC Convention Center. And I thought to myself, I have a platform. And I have a platform to talk about something that was important. And the Me Too movement was going all over the world, it was sweeping the world. And I just felt that there was a lot to do with victimhood. And I started reading about the missing girls in China. There were over 1 million missing girls in China. There were almost the same number in India. And the question was, why is there such a prejudice against women? It was in 1970, there were 61 million missing unborn or just born girls in the world. But by 2020, the figure was 142.6 million. In many Islamic cultures, the restrictions imposed by the men on the freedom of women is a reflection on the value of women. There is no value. And I felt that we needed a voice that screams out in protest. So this gave birth to my Cocoon of Power. And the installation had to do with the rights of girls. So it was the rights of girls to be born, the right to live, to the right to dream, and the power to experiment and make mistakes with equal opportunity to reach for the stars. So I reached out to my friends around the world, and I asked them whether they would reflect on their achievements and write statements that would be inspirational and motivational. So 22 inspirational statements were submitted, and these were women who were born or reside in 11 countries from 4 continents. The stories and beliefs are testaments of women who overcame incredible odds from being born in the wrong sex, burdened with restrictions to dream, seek personal power. The comments are very moving and motivational, and I'd like to quote or read a few of them. The first one is from Ania, and her comment was, "If you believe it, you can achieve it." And it's testament to who she was, coming over here, not knowing the language, and becoming the success that she is today. The second one is from a Filipino woman, and her name is Agnes Hassel, and she achieved tremendous success in America. And she writes, "Born a girl, daughter number 4, everyone wished I was son number 2. Fervently I wished I was a boy too. My wish didn't come true. My lucky star, I tell you, this amazing woman I am now. Thank you." The next one is from a beautiful young woman who was the classmate of my son, Marie Helene Prince, and she was an attorney. And she wrote, I am a mother, wife, and attorney. I am a protector, companion, and guide. I fight the misconception that I am too nice, sweet, pretty to be an attorney. I use one case at a time, and I do it with love. The next woman was Barbara Jackson. She recently died, but she was a white woman who was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and her grandmother was really poor, and she had a store in a Black neighborhood, and they lived above it. And it was reverse racism because nobody played with her. She was of the wrong color. And she writes, roots in poverty and racism, seeds planted by strong grandmother, incubated with vision of world beyond, nurtured by caring teachers, fertilized by education and exposure, strengthened by sorrow and success, and I blossomed into a tall poppy. And the last one I'd like to read is from a friend of mine who was my husband's colleague, and they had done their PhD together, and she was a professor of finance. And she wrote, I found my voice in the classroom, in the boardroom, in every room I inhabit. My voice is power. What was interesting is that this was exhibited in Korea, and we had women, men who came with their phones, and they took copies of these statements and had an immediate translation. And I was really happy about it because it started a dialogue that this wasn't just common, this was common also in Korea. And what I do in my work, the lead motive of in my conceptual art is to communicate ideas and initiate dialogue, to question the basis for the prejudice against women's abilities to achieve social, economic, and political success. And in my art, I focus on the ongoing emancipation issues for women through the power of art. And I'd like to thank Ania for inviting me to be part of this journey. And I'm very grateful to meet all of you and to listen to all that you've got to say about your art. Now it's my honor to introduce Chuck Stigliano from the US.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Let's talk about this piece. It's the story that the name Galatea comes from is an ancient Greek myth, and it refers to this sculptor Pygmalion, who, unhappy with the women in his life, and I suspect it's because they were unhappy with him, created, according to various stories, in ivory or marble, an ideal woman that perhaps being a little bit unhinged, he would dress it and put jewelry on it, and he made a bed for it, and we don't know what else he did, but he at a festival for Aphrodite, where one goes and makes an offering and prays for a spouse. He did that. He did everything he was supposed to do, but under his breath, between the prayers, he would say, like the sculpture, because this is what he wanted. Aphrodite heard him. When he gets home, the figure, Galatea, becomes alive, practically in his arms, and Aphrodite comes to the wedding, and they live happily ever after. A grad student of mine wrote a version of the story where 2 weeks after the marriage, she leaves him, and he goes and complains to Aphrodite, and she says, well, what did you expect? His problem was and our problem was in the creation of an ideal, and the ideal as far as a sculptor is concerned, I was educated in a tradition where we make ideal figures. And the sculptor is concerned with appearance for an ideal, but there are many different aspects of that. There's behavior for an ideal. There is degree of education, which is generally in almost every culture and almost every period, the degree of education for women has been limited because the ideal would be you don't learn beyond a certain point. Behavior, dress, appearance, and I started this in 2016. It occurred to me that the creation of the ideal, and it occurred to me years before in my own work, was a problem in that no one could live up to it. And one of the responses, particularly by the heterosexual male, to a woman failing to live up to the ideal was violence. Seeing that art, particularly Western art, but was responsible in some ways for this, I decided in creating this figure to use images from art history. The oldest is from the Cleophas painter. It's a Kylix painting of Achilles and Penthesilea. And the most recent work on there, I think, is by Nancy Spiro from the 90s, and it's a Gestapo victim. I think, you know, now we see all these TV shows, all these stories or movies about people creating machines, women that are androids or robots or things like that. They're all part of the same story. Pygmalion's dream was an adolescent fantasy that generally has this culture has not grown out of. You know, when we set this up, when I move this around, when I pose it, people refer to it as she, which is interesting to me because it's an object, and it's intentionally an object that can be manipulated. But when people say she and hold the arm, her arm, and can you turn her head a little bit? And it's interesting to me because that's a way of talking about an object as if it were human. And I've done it myself. It's very easy to do when you're working with it. But it's apparently also really very easy also to treat a human as if they were an object and think that there's something that you can control. And when the failure to meet the standards of control, because it's inevitable, a failure to meet an ideal, that's when the violence occurs. And in my own work, I mean, in calling this Galatea and me being the sculptor, I put myself in the wrong position. But it's not just in Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, James Joyce explores one particular theory about art, Stephen Dedalus does. And he says that art should not, if it attracts you, he called it pornographic art. And advertising is full of this. And he said, if it repels you, I think he called that didactic, which isn't the word I would have used there, but he said, because he thought great art would immobilize you. And I think that's one of the things I was thinking of, to make something that would be traditionally attractive in art. But then when you get to it, you find all these images, and all the images are of violence against women. Then you would be stopped. You would, because I believe the female nude comes with consequences, but any representation of an ideal, or any concept of an ideal, or any set of rules and social restrictions and boundaries that force somebody into an ideal come with consequences. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Małgorzata, Malwina, Eszter.
Yes, that's okay. I introduced by myself because my second name is very, very long. So my name is Małgorzata Malwina Niespodziewana. Malwina is my artistic name, a short one. I live in Krakow, Poland. I'm a visual artist and printmaker. I create drawings, objects, artist books, installation and videos, and I also perform, but in my opinion, it's a very tough kind of activity, art activity. I'm also a professor. I also teach at university. My permanent reference in my art is the human body. I'm the author of the artistic concept of universal body. Universal body for me is, for instance, hair, blood, or for instance, tears. I also relate biographies, texts, and practices of avant-garde women artists like Katarzyna Kobro, Erna Rosenstein, and Maria Jarema, Polish artists. An important element of my practice is a diary written for many years and my artistic journeys, especially to the Far East and to Japan. I've been there 4 times with my art project. In my art, I focus on female figures in fairy tales. I'm interested in feminists, of course, anarchist and negative perspectives about women, for instance, in fairy tales especially, evil mother, daughter, stepmother, or the motive of transformation of the female body, for example, into a plant or an animal. I'm also a co-founder of the female group 13. This is Polish female group. I think the oldest female artistic group in Poland. Now we have quite a lot of exhibitions, and the group is 26. So it takes quite a lot of time to work together with my colleague, with my artists, my friends, of course. And this shortly about me, and now I would like to say something about my work. You can see this work. The artist book titled Cat refers to the story of Mahsa Amini, who died on September 16, 2022, as a result of being beaten up because of a badly fitted hijab. The death of a 22-year-old Iranian woman sparked a wave of demonstration. Women in solidarity cut their hair in protest around the world. For me also, that was very important because hair that motive is very important in my art. But also, I was very touched of this death, really, believe me. So this work cut is a manifestation of resistance depicting the solidarity of women against ongoing repressions. The artistic book is made of artificial hair, braids, and original drawings. I use Japanese Gampi paper. I work a lot with Japanese paper. For me, it's a kind of skin. The book is a unique object. An important part is also its construction. It can be opened from different sides, and the transparency of this paper is also very important. And you can see on the left one photo of this artistic book, but it should be opposite. And that's also important because its shape, this is shape of flag. So that's for me also important. So it should be in opposite way. And the work, of course, speaks about women's freedom, solidarity, and sisterhood. And sisterhood, that's the most important also for me, the word, and think to work with women, with artists, female artists, etc. That's not only one work I did for Mahsa Amini. I also prepared drawing, also on Japanese paper. And I must say that I'm very proud that one of my work is used in Wikipedia to sisterhood issue, of course, in Polish. I made many artistic books in my life. I've just closed my exhibition in Łódź at the Book Art Museum, and this week. And I've displayed there many artworks after my journey to Japan in 2024, last year. And maybe that's all from me now. And to my honors, to introduce Erik and Martin Demaine.
Let's wait for the slides and yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Erik Demaine.
Martin Demaine, both from MIT.
Father and son. I guess.
Son and father.
Yeah. And we have this piece over in the corner, which is called Terms of Freedom. But we thought we'd give you a little context of how we got to this work. And buttons. So we work together a lot on both the mathematics, science, computer science, and art of paper folding. And this is an example of a result on the mathematical side. So this is an algorithm called Origamizer. You give it an arbitrary 3D surface like the bunny in the top left. It gives you a crease pattern in the bottom left, which you fold. So it only takes about 10 hours. You fold the red lines one way, the blue lines the other way, and you get exactly the bunny you asked for. So that's cool. And that's using straight line creases, which is where most of origami mathematics lies. But we're really fascinated by what we don't understand mathematically. And that's what we create art about, namely curved creases. So this.
They come from originally from the Bauhaus in 1928. And we're just fascinated with them, and including the mathematics.
So this is a shape that we actually don't know whether it exists mathematically, whether it's possible to fold exactly along concentric circles, alternating mountain and valley, and get any 3D surface. Here, it's in practice, we seem to get this saddle surface, and then we combine those together to make sculpture.
It started just by accident, and it was recognized by MoMA, and they asked us to do a series, and we were hooked.
So that pulled me I mean, we still do a lot of math together, but now then I became an artist. Marty's background is in art, so nothing new for him. But we got to explore together what it's like to create sculpture.
This shows an assembly of one of the larger ones. And they're put together. There's pressure that kind of holds them. And we let it sit for a few days to make sure it's stable. And then they're glued so they can't move after. And it's a long process waiting. The best part is the collaboration. We take turns putting the pieces in. And we have this attitude of it's a yes and. You can never say no, don't put it there. You have to accept what the other person does. And it works magically.
We both studied improv, and that's the founding principle there is yes and, always complimenting each other and not.
Thank you.
Doing great. Yeah, so we're both also glass blowers. So a natural challenge was to try to recreate this kind of folding in glass. This was done with two expert glass blowers at Pilchuck Glass School. But most of our glass sculpture combines the folded paper forms with glass. And this.
It's kind of a challenge. These two forms of media are generally not accepted together, but we're having some interesting success. And these are the first series that we started with.
And some more recent work in this series is with Marielle Bass, who's in the back there. She's a master glass artist in the Boston area. And we just got married last week. And so she's really good at making more representational forms. So here's a functional teapot, although there's a hole in the bottom. So don't use it to store your tea unless it's made of paper. This is autumn tea, and these are some ghost frogs representing the loss of various frog species around the world. They're disappearing before our eyes. And this is a really large piece we made together, a 5-foot long glass brush, like a calligraphy brush, and filled with paper, and also the bristles of the brush are paper.
A big challenge in making this. It was pretty exciting. The glass is done by Marielle, and we kind of decorated it in different ways. We're also interested in alphabets, ways of describing different things. And this uses one of our fonts that we've designed.
So you can see one little strand one strip of paper is coming out of the brush and folding into the words brush with words. This is a font you see in the top right called strip folding font. There's a bunch of other mathematical and artistic fonts you can explore on our webpage if you want to check them out. But we're going to focus here on origami. So transitioning to book art, which this show is about, we started in this world wanting to add another layer of meaning to our folded paperwork by printing some text, printing a book onto the paper. And our first instance of this was the short story, The Destructors by Graham Greene, where this is, if you've ever seen the movie Donnie Darko, this is the story that they're reading in the movie. And both the movie and the story are all about destruction as a form of creation. So we took this as permission to destroy the short story and turn it into something new.
Now it's still readable if you destroy the sculpture.
Yes, which we encourage you to do. And we also, so here's a close-up, you can read some of the text. And we also put these forms into glass. The one on the right is inspired by the movie. There's this fictional character, Frank the Rabbit, you see in the bottom, this is before we worked with Marielle, so it's an approximation.
The one on the left, you can see there's kind of grizzled or cracking, trying to shatter to get out.
Right. Again, referencing destruction. So a few more examples of this. This is the entire works of Shakespeare, but just the red words, just the words that contain red in them, and they're highlighted in red. You see feathered and slaughtered and kindreds and so on.
The interest came because Shakespeare invented thousands of new words that were easily understood. And there's a few of them in there with red. 235 red words.
And we were in a recent episode of Craft in America, which you can check out on PBS website, and it shows making of a glass version of this piece. And now we get to terms of freedom. I think freedom means a lot of things to a lot of people. We've heard a lot of cool, deep meanings of freedom here today. And so we just tried to cover all of our bases and include a lot of different types of freedom. I don't know, the obvious ones like freedom of speech or freedom of choice or freedom from oppression.
Freedom of design, freedom of collaboration, but all the others are there too. Freedom from violence. We couldn't just pick any one. They all are equally important to us. Freedom to marry. I forgot about that.
Freedom to play. Lots of good stuff. And so, and because we're also computer scientists, we like to develop software to help make our art. So this is a tool that we made to lay out this text properly justified perfectly within the circles to get it ready to print. And then we fold and assemble. And the base is the text, if you want to read all the different freedoms that are in there. Anything else you want to say about this?
This was kind of a hard piece to make. We changed the forms to try and make it bring more people to read it, to understand it, to find things that they liked. And so what's unusual about this piece in comparison to the others, it's a bit more open and airy and allows people in.
And show some other related examples. This is using the same idea, but now writing text in Braille. This was a fun challenge. We had to learn a lot about how Braille works. This is for a show for visually impaired people. And we had to build a custom machine for embossing the Braille because Braille is not normally written in a spiral.
And it's in Danish.
Yeah, it's also in Danish. We love QR codes. Our first piece about QR codes is from 10 years ago. And one of the fun things about QR codes is they're error correcting. So you can cut a big hole in the center and you can still scan this. If you do, it says folding error. You can't scan the 3D version, this 2D version.
This coding allows you to remove 1/3 of the material and still readable. It's kind of scary.
And we just finished a piece, this is also with Marielle, about the Cheshire Cat. Here we're back to book art in bed, writing the text, The Cat Only Grinned, where Alice meets the Cheshire Cat on a QR code. If you scan the QR code, you get the entire text of Alice in Wonderland.
It's for book art, Joe. Isn't the next one shows the...
Yeah.
Oh, so you can't read the text on that, but the text is on top.
So we've been trying to push the limits of QR codes. This is using an idea that you can actually modify 8/9 of a QR code and it will still scan. This says, can't take my eye off of you if you scan it, even though, and mostly you see the picture of the eye. And it's actually made from a stack of 4 layers of paper that you see on the right. So it's a white sheet on top of a black sheet on top of a white sheet. Top of a black one.
And you can see that on the right. That was a challenge, and Erik did most of the software work for that.
And this software is open source. You can make your own fun QR codes. We also like burning things. So this is Marty doing some cursive with pouring hot glass onto a wet piece of paper, and it just burns a little bit, and you can use that to make a kind of pyro print.
Since we've been working together so long, Erik can read my writing.
Yeah. So we make this kind of print, and then we fold it up into 3D sculpture. And just to close the loop, we put it inside a glass. So burnt glass burns paper, paper goes in glass. And we've had a couple really large pieces recently. This is the first one, largest piece yet. It's 14 feet tall. We're using curved creases, but in a different way, and algorithmically laying out a scene of 40,000 people in this case.
Which represents the population of Fitchburg, which is where the ship was.
And so there's also custom software here, some of which is open source, and you can do your own fun layout designs. And then the most recent piece, this was last year, is the various endangered species in the world in a kind of fictional universe where they could all live together.
And also using the same patterns and doing it with fabric.
Yeah, this is with a fashion designer in New York City, Win-Win, and making some fun, fabric can also be folded kind of like paper. And maybe some of the first dresses involving curved creases.
Right.
So that's it. Thanks everyone for coming and being part of this show. Thank you. We have no one to introduce because that's the end, but back to Ania and...
Thank you, Ania.